Welcome back, everyone. Strong Sweet Caroline is here, and by popular request, I am starting a new series focusing on enhancement, some of the most common enhancement products that you hear women using in bodybuilding, as well as for lifestyle, general health. So, before we get started, disclaimer: I am not a doctor, I am not a medical professional. This is for entertainment education purposes only. Always consult someone with higher advanced education before you decide to incorporate things. Some substances discussed are legally available, others are not, so keep that in mind.
Number 56, Caroline DeMesquita.
Now, I am going to do a series specifically on what are some of the more common products used, why they're used, ways they're used, etc. At the end of the day, and I say this time and time again, every single person is bio-individual. So what works well for someone may not work well for another person. You have to keep that in mind in perspective when talking about relative experience versus what is found in studies. So that is where it gets a little gray area, is a lot of these substances, especially some newer substances on the market and being talked about, do not have the credibility from research and scientific data to back certain uses and side effects. But I will say, from a generalization standpoint, a lot of anabolic androgenic steroids, known as AAs, do have a lot of scientific research and studies from years of use. Some of that is in the US, a lot of it is not. So that is just a precursor as far as what you're looking at from a broad standpoint. I went over all this in my course, Feminine Health Enhanced. So if you weren't able to attend and you still want to get that information, I'm no longer holding the class, but I'm selling the course with the full PDF of PowerPoint slides and the recording. So if you're interested in that, send me an email and we can get that over to you. So today, I'm talking about what I consider the holy grail substance for not only females, but for males. And that is growth stimulators. Most specifically, we're looking at human growth hormone. So, if you're wondering, or you've always wondered why and how bodybuilders get so big, most of the time it's growth hormone. We know that a lot of children naturally have high growth hormone and IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. That is what leads to our growth and development starting at a young age, and it spikes around puberty. Now, when we're thinking about adding in human growth hormone, you can do so at any age. And it was actually became popular in the 1980s during the Olympics, which by 1989 it got banned because of the Olympic use. But reason people like to use it is because it will help create satellite cells in the body that will basically grow so you can put on more muscle tissue. Without growth hormone, you can't create these new cells, and it just doesn't happen on a natural level, especially as we age. So you might hear a lot of people in their 50s on up starting to add in a human growth hormone because they want to prevent aging and they want to have a biohacking approach to anti-aging. Growth hormone has been considered the fountain of youth product because of this. So if you look at someone who's in their 60s, 70s, they're very fit, their face and their skin, their hair looks really healthy and young, there's a high chance that they're on growth hormone. So when we're looking at growth hormone, we know that it can directly impact the conversion of free fatty acids circulation and also muscle tissue growth. So it can have an improvement on the body composition. There are pharmaceuticals as well as generics on the market. Both can be beneficial. It's just more so a matter of, is it real growth hormone or not? And so you want to just be careful when you're considering it, because there is going to be options on the market as far as what's real, true pharmaceutical, authentic versus true, authentic, generic. And from a relative experience standpoint, using one or the other, it doesn't really have too big of a difference on the impact. But from using pharmaceutical, there's usually less water holding versus using a generic. So when you're using them, most of the time you're wanting to use them either intramuscular into the tissue that you're really trying to grow before the gym, or you can do it subcutaneous under the skin before doing cardio in the morning if you're trying to promote fat loss, or you can just do it before bed, either sub-Q or intramuscular before bed, because we know that when the body is sleeping, we are increasing our chance of recovery, increasing our chance of growth hormone and IGF-1 spiking during the night. So the only thing that is a big concern when it comes to growth hormone is looking at your health history. You think of what growth hormone is doing by replicating and creating new cells. If you have a health history with cancer, maybe it's not a good idea to use a growth stimulator because you might be creating more cancer tissue and cancer cells. So definitely something to be mindful of. I have heard of some recent people I know using growth hormone that were getting achy joints in their lower body especially. And there's not very many research studies saying that as a side effect, because typically growth hormone is helping repair the tissue, bone, hair, skin, and nails. And so you might actually have less aches and pains if you're in your middle-aged years, but every person is going to have a different response. So something to think about. And usually when you're administering growth hormone, I keep hearing time and time again, well, I'm going to just try growth at the last 4 weeks of my prep, or I'm going to just jump on it for 2 weeks at a time. That's not really how it works. Growth hormone can take up to 6 months before you start to have those cells fully developed to create muscle tissue. So it's an investment of time, and it's also an investment of money. And that is the reason that most people do not do growth hormone, is because it can get very expensive to do on a routine basis. If you're looking at a generic, you could be running 2 IUs for 4 to 5 days a week, and it might cost you $300 a month. If you're running pharmaceutical grade, it could be $600 plus a month, depending on your source. So it's definitely something to keep in mind for your wallet and your health goals. Now, when it comes to female athletes in certain divisions, most of the time 1 to 2 IUs is really all you need as a female. Some men, you can go above that. I would never recommend above 8 IUs for anyone. Now, when it comes to human growth hormone versus using a product that is a growth stimulator like GHRP, you're probably not going to see quite the same of a response because it is a peptide product versus a true growth hormone from stem cells. So just something to keep in mind and think about when you are introducing a new growth stimulator product. And there's always going to be times where you never want to stay on something year-round. So taking breaks, like I was saying, 4 to 5 days a week, taking a couple of days of break. Some people take a month or 2 break during the year and then jump back on it. It just depends on, how you're feeling and what's making the most sense in your programming. So hope this was helpful. Give me a comment below what you think or what you've heard about growth hormone, and we can definitely discuss further. But I hope this helps in your pursuits of your health and fitness journey.